Many people claim to have an objective view on the Israel-Palestine conflict, but given that you have parents from both Israel and Iran, you actually might. What's something about the conflict that the West fundamentally misunderstands?
I think the fact that many people in the Middle East, there's a lack of appreciation for how many women and how many men in Gen Z want freedom like we do here in the United States. And I think a lot of people don't understand that to the depth that the people who have fled the Middle East and who have come here. Now, I'm not talking about the people who have come here and they want to make our country here, the United States, like Afghanistan, right? Like there's people who leave Afghanistan, they come here, they want us to have Taliban rule perhaps. No, they can go back to Afghanistan unless they're here to enjoy the economic incentives and then tell us what to do with our own money. No, we didn't ask them.
Now, you have a bit of a history. Obviously, your grandfather was saved when coming to the United States. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so my grandfather was a major general, one of the biggest in Iran. He served a region called Mashhad. And, I remember as a child looking at photos of him in the Shah. And, he loved his country. He didn't steal any money from the country. He married a Jewish woman. I'm not an Iranian Jew. I am Jewish, my family from Jerusalem on my mother's side. And then I have Iranians in my family. So I'm Iranian and Israeli. That's there are Iranian Jews. That my family was Jerusalem and Iran. And my grandfather married a Jewish woman. He was a Muslim. And back then, Iran had a good relationship with the West, had a good relationship with Israel and the United States. Then in 1979, there was this alliance of essentially communists and terrorists that joined forces and took a very rich country and basically destroyed it economically. And what's interesting is that many of those people that were like the terrorists, they winded up butchering, slaughtering the leftists that were communist leaning. Or they fled and went to Europe, to the United States. And I think a lot of people here in the United States don't know that for Iranian-Americans in particular who have fled, come here to the United States, we've sort of seen this of what can come. And hopefully it doesn't come to the United States because this country saved my grandfather's life. So Iranians, there was an Iranian man, he was about 18, 19. He was a terrorist. He went and trained in Palestine. And he came back to Iran and he shot my father with an AR, 5-6 shots in his chest. My grandfather survived. The soldiers wanted to murder this person because my grandfather was very popular with the soldiers. He was a warrior among warriors. And he was an honest man. He was dedicated to serve Iran. And, he survived it. And he told the soldiers, basically, don't go kill him. He spared that guy. He spared the kid who tried to assassinate him. My grandfather fled through Turkey to exit the country. They bombed the safe house my grandfather was staying in. If it was not for Americans, they would have killed my grandfather. Americans saved my grandfather from Iranians. After that revolution in Iran, that's rejected by 8 out of 10 Iranians today, that kid who attempted to assassinate my grandfather was elected to the equivalent of mayor in a region of Iran. And for some people listening to this, they may think, how is that fair? That's not justice. Well, however, he winded up getting assassinated.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. A quick one from me. If you wouldn't mind clicking like and subscribe, it would really help the channel out. Back to the video.
So, That's crazy how that worked.
It's literally, it sounds like the plot of a movie. You could make a movie out of that story you just told right there.
I mean, the thing is, my grandfather was 61, physically fit. He had the body of like a 22-year-old fitness model at 61. One day he had a massive stroke and died. He went to the hospital. The doctor looked at him and told my uncle that he didn't have the will to fight. That regime destroyed my grandfather's life. He saw his friends murdered. Basically, so many of his friends were literally murdered. He survived, only to lived the last 5 years basically heartbroken. They destroyed his life. And on my father's side, they also stole money from our family. So my family on both sides has felt the repercussions of this violent terrorist regime that kills girls, beats women, tortures women, leaves young girls in the alley. And so for me to see women here in the United States somehow whitewash this, to see Tucker Carlson go there and whitewash Iran regime, it's outrageous. It's outrageous that we allow Tucker Carlson to do something like that, bro. It's truly outrageous. But that just goes to tell you how far Qatari oil money can go.
It is very interesting. You brought up Tucker Carlson. He's had a tumultuous last 5 years, I'd say, in the media. What does he represent to conservative media today?
He's like, he's elitism. He has this like bow tie elitism. He pretends he's like a blue collar worker. He's like imagine like a prep school kid meets populism, and he grants, his butt is basically for sale. He goes out to Iran, he goes out to Qatar, and he interviews these leaders, comes back to the United States, has financing for his media company, probably through American entities that whitewashed it. And then all of a sudden, those dictators are like misunderstood entrepreneurs. What Tucker Carlson, the woke media, and Instagram models have in common is that they're loud, fake, and for sale.
One character I've seen Tucker cozy up to is Nick Fuentes, and he's obviously captured the eyes of the younger following. How does he keep pulling in these young followers?
I think you have a tremendous amount of bots online that are amplifying outrageous content. Do I think outrageous content works? Yeah. Do I think that Mamdani is popular? Yes, I think Mamdani is popular. I think he's an eloquent speaker. I think there are a lot of New Yorkers where we are right now that sincerely resonate with his message. I think that there's people who resonate with Nick Fuentes. To just discount these guys, it's not accurate. There's something, they do say some things that resonate with people. Now, do I think Qatar, Pakistan, Chinese Communist Party, are they amplifying this sort of content to divide our country? No doubt about it. And that's bipartisan. You may see that on the Democrat side and the Republican side. So they may blast a tweet from MTG, right? She's a Republican. She's largely known at this point for how she whored around her Georgia town, cheated on her husband, embarrassed her husband. She was whoring around the whole town. Then she makes like $21 million insider trading in like 2 years. How? How is that possible? And then she sits there on her high horse and she judges the Democrats. She's just as guilty as anything. She's just as guilty as Nancy Pelosi, who, by the way, is also a crook who's doing insider trading. How is it possible that we have Republican and Democrats making millions of dollars after we elected them? We trusted them to go into the office and represent their constituents, and then there they are getting rich. I never voted for that. I mean, it's hard to say, I'm going to vote for you to go be my leader because of some culture war issue. That culture war issue, though, is going to make you a multimillionaire. Well, are you actually doing it for yourself at this point, or are you doing it just to get rich? You know, like what happened to just serving your country? What happened to all the people that are the politicians that are out there doing it, and then are serving their country, and then they're looking at their counterpart making millions of dollars. They're making millions of dollars, and they're wondering, why am I not making millions of dollars?
Yeah, it does seem a little shady that the same Congress that sets the laws can also trade before and after they've set those same laws. I heard this one quote. It said, "If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." That was by Desmond Tutu. Do you feel like people expect you to pick a side given the upbringing that you've had?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I am mixed with Iranians and Israelis in my family. My wife is German, as you know. My daughter's mother is German. So, we have a German Bible in our home in Germany. My wife's an evangelical Christian. And, I'm a Jewish man. I look at it as why Iran and Israel have had a historic friendship. Iran and Israel are historically friends in the Persian Empire. I don't like to use the word Persian. I look at it as an Aryan empire because Iran is actually land of Aryans. That's the ancient civilization was actually Aryan tribes. I look at like Iran and Israel should actually have they're natural allies, and they've both suffered at the hands of these Arab terrorists who butcher women, rape women, beat women. I mean, you look at the Christian communities in the Middle East right now, they get butchered. They just get butchered. You look at the Christian communities in Syria, you look at the Christian communities in Iran, you look at the Christian communities, what has happened to the Christians, let's say Israel, Lebanon. I mean, to say that it is a safe place for Christians in the Middle East is outrageous. We have Christians in Israel. Christians are generally safe in Israel. Yeah, you might have a multipolar, you have a multi-ethnic population in the UAE. However, I'm sorry, you ask a liberal European woman, where do you feel safer, Israel or UAE? I guarantee you most will still say UAE. They may, say they don't like the Israel-Palestine conflict, but there's no doubt about it. If you're a woman, if you're a gay man, you probably feel more comfortable in Israel. And the black people in Israel aren't slaves. They don't view them as slaves like in Arab culture.
Do you think people miss the sheer dichotomy between the level of freedom in, let's say, the 22 Arab nations surrounding Israel and Israel itself? Do you think the Americans miss that massive difference between the two?
The 22 countries?
Yeah, just, there's obviously a level of freedom in Israel, and then the countries surrounding them don't have that level of freedom. That's one thing I felt has been missed in the dialogue. I think people think, everyone in America, it's very easy to take freedom for granted because you've always had it. But these other countries, it's not taken for granted because they know how easy it can be stripped away. People don't have a voice in a lot of these countries. So do you think people in America miss that?
Yeah, I think so. As someone who likes to visit Israel, and my family history is in Jerusalem. Christian people are welcomed in Israel. In a country of about millions of people, you have a tiny, tiny cult that's like 400 or 500 Israelis, and they go and they spit on tourists. It's a very rare thing. Now, what the Soviet propaganda or Arab propaganda, what they like to do is take that as if that symbolizes the majority of the population, which the overwhelming, vast majority of the population is disgusted by that. If you actually speak to 20 Christian people who have visited Israel, all right, not Abdul, whose name is Jane Smith from Tennessee on Instagram. If you spoke to 20 Christian people and you said, you visited Israel, what was your trip like? I guarantee you out of 20, 19, if not all 20 will say, that was a nice trip. Christian people are pretty welcomed. You know, like there's busloads of Christians that go to Israel and look at the sites. They're beautiful. Like, you know, these biblical stories are incredible. And for a Christian to go and look at it, I would imagine it's pretty amazing, honestly. You know, you get to put places to it. You get to see the people. And, you know, I'm someone that looks at it as, you know, America is a Judeo-Christian country. I know Arab propagandists and Soviet propaganda hates that. They hate that. They hate if you say it's a Judeo-Christian country, because that's exactly what they want to break. That's why they hate it. That's why they find it so insultive when you say it's a Judeo-Christian country. What's so insultive about the fact that our founding fathers, the framers of the United States Constitution, some of them actually read the Old Testament, read the Torah, first 5 books of the Bible. Benjamin Franklin, see what he talks about when he talks about the Jewish faith. I mean, to take that out is just ridiculous, you know. And that's why they do it, because they don't want a Christian country. See, I support a Christian America. I support it. I think we're far, far better off in this country if the Bible is the most important book, not that degenerate stuff that you may see in Hollywood. I'm in New York City, liberal city, and I say the Bible is the most important. I think it should be my vote is it should be the most important book in our country, because the Bible teaches you a lot of good things. And by the way, I'm not even a Christian. I'm not a Christian. My wife's a Christian. As a Jewish man, I would give this support to the Christians. I definitely don't want our country like the Taliban, bro. Because I don't want my daughter in 20 years to get subjected to the Taliban rule where they beat her, they treat her like a dog, and she can't talk. No, I'd much rather my daughter marry a Christian guy from North Carolina than a Taliban.
It's funny, that sentiment that you mentioned, because when Ben Shapiro was being interviewed after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, he was asked, what's one thing you always recommend to Americans in order to build familial ties, to build social ties, to make America healthier from a divide perspective? And he says, go to church. And I remember the interviewer questioned her and said, you mean like a Christian church? And he said, definitely. He goes, the majority of America is Christian. The single greatest contributor to charities, 90% of all dollars to charities, come from the Christian church today. And so even he's obviously a very prominent Jew. So for him to say that, similar sentiment to what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh, maybe him and I came to the same conclusion.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, you openly talk about your cultural pride, your family roots. How does your family react when you take public stances like this on geopolitics?
I think my dad wanted to see a free Iran. So he was actually a fan of Trump, my father. My mother's a liberal. My wife is a liberal. They don't hold the same views as me.
How does that work in the household?
We generally avoid it because they know, for example, I don't think Netanyahu's perfect. I think he's in an impossible situation. And I think he's doing overall outstanding considering how tough of a situation it is. I think Benjamin Netanyahu will go down as one of the most important heroes in Jewish history in the last 2,000 years. And I don't care if they try to indoctrinate me to think opposite. I don't care. The Israeli government has now on a tirade to shame him. I refuse to shame him. We have such an amazing president here in the United States that he went to Israel and helped them. He didn't have to do that. But it's nice to see that Netanyahu and Trump have a friendship. That's my personal view. I know a lot of people hate if I say that because a lot of people hate a Jewish man that speaks up unapologetically. They hate a white man that speaks up unapologetically. I think. I mean, I'm not a white guy like a European white guy. I'm a Jewish guy, but I think that the two people you can hate in this country is number one, the Jewish guy. I just have to lay over and let everyone hate me. And then the second is the white guy. Everyone insults the white guy. It's okay to make jokes on the white guy. No, I don't subscribe to that, man. I think it's disgusting. I don't want when my daughter applies for if I applied for a scholarship to a university, I have to put down white man. I don't get any benefits. I resent that. I resent that if my uncle went and got a PhD and he told me he put down Asian when he applied for a scholarship. They basically came back at him like he committed fraud. Why? Because he had to put down white. Oh, so if he was just born one country east, he was Asian. He's born one country left, he's white. Oh, okay. No, I don't want my daughter to have, I don't want my daughter to not get I don't want my daughter to get penalized because she's white.
You brought your daughter up a couple of times, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. But you obviously switched from a bit more of a comedic stance on social media to obviously talking about the deeper political issues. How much of that was driven by your daughter, love for her, and how afraid are you of the pushback that she might get due to your content?
Yeah, so when I did Alpha King Nima, I did that as a satire around the Red Pill movement. All of Alpha King Nima was satire. So when there was that whole situation with Matt Rife, right, someone took an Alpha King rule and then spinned it as a conspiracy theory. That was legitimately an Alpha King rule. The video was about Alpha King. Video winds up getting like 25, 30 million views or 40 million, 50 million views. I don't even know. And then TMZ picked it up and they were pretty dishonest in the sense of they didn't take my side of the story. They just ran with it and slandered me. Then they made it seem as if it was like, oh, Nima backtracked. I never backtracked shit. The whole thing was satire. I have like 50 videos, all Alpha King rules. You dum-dums took it seriously and then the press goes and they run with it with clickbait. But I think the person who actually benefited from all that, aside from TMZ and the media, was Matt Rife because he was doing a tour. So actually, I think it might have been my theory is it might have been an inside job.
What was the joke that you made and how did Matt twist it?
I don't think Matt did anything. I think it was TMZ, but I think it was the fact that he was doing his tour that coverage helped him sell tickets. I don't think Matt did anything, just like I didn't do anything. I think Matt knew it was clearly a joke. I mean, he's comedy. He's doing comedy, you know?
Sure.
And plus we have a mutual friend in LA and who does he runs a comedy club night there, very popular. And he's a popular comedian himself. And yeah, I think that's what it was.
Okay.
I mean, it was clearly satire. And I don't want to discredit all the work of Matt Rife, but it was about him getting on his knees, giving blowjobs to get success. It was clearly a joke.
Sure.
I never met him.
Maybe sometime in the future.
Maybe.
So
much respect to you, Matt Rife.
I'm sure he'd say the same. So, but on the piece about pushback from either your family and how much you do this for your daughter, how much of this is all inspired by her?
A lot of, there's people that I think about that inspire me. For example, Mansa Amina. I never can not think about her because I saw an image. I looked at an image of her with tubes in her nose. And when I look at her as a father, I thought, I think that could be my daughter. And I know that she had an Iranian father just like me. She was murdered. She was left out in the street on an alley. They left her there to die. And they got away with it. The regime got away with it. And there are a lot of Iranian fathers that have never got justice for their daughters getting raped, beat, or murdered. And that weighs on me. This morning, when I was in bed at the hotel, I thought about this young, handsome man named Omid. And, you know, he was murdered in Iran for burning a flag. He was maybe your age. Is there any justice for his parents? No. Will Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Nick Fuentes continue this charade of making, I guess, Iran look like a good guy and Israel a bad guy? Probably they'll get away with it. But as a person whose family fled the Middle East and came to the United States and loves the United States, what incentive do I have to not help the United States, considering my father told me to love America? America saved my grandfather's life. I love this country. And I think that people who came here from the Middle East and love this country, I think their voice should actually have heavier weight than Americans who've never been to that region. I do think that. I think that those people, they know it much more intimately.
Certainly.
And they're giving warnings to Americans. Don't do this, because this is what's going to come. We've seen, we left the Middle East because it's like listening to a Cuban person talk about communism. It's like you talk to a Russian person talk about communism. The Russian guy and the Cuban guy, they just fled communism, right? Nick Fuentes, a Mexican homosexual, he says that on this certain date on Tucker Carlson's podcast, that's a special day for him. You know what that day is? Stalin's birthday. Stalin killed more people than Hitler. I mean, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, is that like the cool thing now with Gen Z? I don't know. I don't look at Stalin and think, oh, that's what I want for our country. No.
Where does the brainwashing come from? It seems so obvious 10 years ago, 5 years ago that, you know, you shouldn't side with Stalin. Obviously, Hitler's a name completely off limits, akin to Voldemort. Where does this come from where all of a sudden it's okay to say nice things about Stalin, Hitler, anyone that might have been otherwise considered a maniac 20 years ago? Why has that changed?
It's a good question. I mean, first of all, I do think Nick Fuentes should have the right to say that. I do support his free speech. What I don't support is the Pakistani bot farms that amplify it. But I do support their free speech to say that. You know, I'm not against their free speech. I think it's important they have it. It's just now, I think, when we have Qatar spending so much money on our schools, when we have the Chinese Communist Party spending so much money on our politicians. And what's remarkable is that they can spend more money than Israel, and we're more critical on Israel. I'm probably one of the only people, I don't know the only people, but I'm one of the people that'll say, I wish Israel would say, we're not going to take the United States aid money. It's only a few $1 billion. I wish Israel would say, we don't want it because it's inconsequential. Because we have a lot of haters of that alliance who want to see the United States and Israel depart from the Middle East. And when the hostile countries are doing propaganda on our Gen Z, they're not saying that. They're saying it as they're framing it as, why are we giving money to a foreign country? Because in North Carolina, there was this disaster. And look at Tim Tim just lost his house, but hey, we're giving $3 billion to Israel, right? Oh, my wife, she had broke her leg, and the insurance company didn't give her money to fix her leg. Oh, but we shouldn't have gave Israel money. Or, there's not enough police on my block and someone stole my car. Oh, well, I guess we shouldn't have given Israel some money.
So you're saying the backlash from giving the money isn't worth the money itself?
It's not worth it because it's inconsequential. And if you just look at Lockheed Martin alone, Lockheed Martin came out, people can fact check me. They came out and they said something along the lines of the innovation, the inventiveness that Israel, the IP that Israel brings out as a tech powerhouse was worth like $100 billion to the United States. So even out of that aid, if 80% of it goes to create jobs in the United States, okay, fine. And I guess we're not going to create those jobs in the United States. But to say that Israel will stop inventing is crazy. There's a reason why our enemies are so focused on Israel, because it does add so much value. They want you to believe that Israel does not add value. It actually, if it did not add value, why would they talk? Why would they spend millions and billions of dollars to get us to hate it? It doesn't make sense.
I was reading this article a couple of days ago, and it was breaking down the number of Nobel laureates by religion, an interesting bifurcation of the data. And it said that the Jewish community had received, I think it was 174 Nobel laureate prizes. And the Islamic community had received 4 in total, and they were all sort of British born. And so speaking to the innovation of it, I think that's a good justification that Israel does innovate, not to mention the miracle of the Iron Dome and all of their military equipment they've put together.
I mean, the Israelis love the United States. They love the United States. Now, if we were to take everyone in this studio and put all of us in the middle of Palestine, and they don't know any of us, I'd walk by fine because they would think I'm Palestinian. But the rest of you guys, I don't know if you would.
Have you heard of the conundrum in Hamtramck?
No.
This is I've got it here actually, this article. Hamtramck, Michigan was considered one of the more progressive enclaves of Detroit metro area. It hosted the state's second largest pride parade and allowed the rainbow pride flag to be flown at City Hall and other municipal buildings. In 2015, Hamtramck, with the mayor backing and the LGBTQ movement, elected a Muslim majority city council, described as the first such in the US to have a Muslim majority. In 2021, this expanded still, and the city elected both a Muslim mayor and an all-Muslim city council. By June 2023, the all-Muslim city council unanimously passed a resolution banning all sexual orientation group flags, including the pride flag. So the same movement that pushed to have a Muslim council and Muslim mayor was then doxxed for the very views that they held for diversity. And I think that's telling when we see something like the LGBTQ movement for Hamas or for Palestine. I think there's something missing when people forget how they would be treated in a place like that where freedom is not something that's widely accepted.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. You nailed it. I mean, it's in Dearborn, Michigan. It's almost like it's just getting completely taken over. Like I'm curious, do people in Michigan think it just stops there, or does it go to Detroit? Is it going to go to Ohio? Is it going to go to Chicago? Or you have something similar in Texas. Is it going to stop in Texas where they're looking to take this like large lot of land and make, a city with their own laws? No, we're in America. No, we are in the United States. Our language is English. You shouldn't get banned for saying, it shouldn't be controversial to say Merry Christmas. Right? I like Merry Christmas. I'm Jewish. I like when people say Merry Christmas. I like the nostalgia of Christmas. Let me tell you what's crazy is in Germany, where my wife is from. In Germany, They have so much security in their Christmas markets because they're scared of these terrorists coming in and killing people. There's so much security around a Christmas market, bro. Like this is like who would even think of doing something that dark, right? So this winter, and then last winter during Christmas market, some fanatic freak terrorist gets in a car, drives in and kills a bunch of Germans, basically, like a freak, right? Now this Christmas, what are we going to do? Shut down the Christmas markets? Now this is not an American problem. I'm just a German problem, but it's not that far from here, right? So what's going to happen next month? Next month, are they going to shut down the Christmas market because they don't want to offend Abdul, the Afghan migrant, because it's offensive to him? Germany is for Germans. That's their country. They should be able to celebrate Christmas. They celebrated Christmas before we even had a country here in the United States. I recommend all Americans go to Germany, see Christmas market because it's very beautiful. It's nostalgic. You feel Christmas, you know? It's so nostalgic. It's like these Christmas markets, you drink wine outside. It's just beautiful. And to think some terrorist freak from Afghanistan comes to Germany and destroys that, they should deport them all. It's ridiculous that we just allow these people to come in here and do what they want. They don't respect us. They come to Europe like they own the place. They're not European. When I'm in Europe, when I'm in Germany, as a resident, I have residency in Germany. I respect the German law. I respect German law. I respect the German culture. I respect the German tradition. I am not German. You know, my wife is German. When I'm in Germany, I look at it like I am a visitor. I have a home in Germany. I have residency in Germany. I have healthcare in Germany for my wife and daughter. But when I am in Germany, I view myself as a visitor. My daughter was born there. I was married there. And I still view myself as a visitor in Germany, a country that I love. And I hope that those people save their country. Honestly, I truly hope the German people save their country.
Speaking of visitors or perhaps immigration, tomorrow is the election. How detrimental do you think Zoran Mamdani would be to New York City?
I think Mamdani is going to be very detrimental to this city. I could just imagine right away the U-Haul stock skyrocketing, people looking to exit, you know, right? But I do think one good thing that would come out of Mamdani getting elected is that he would fix income inequality, because he would make certain that everyone is equally broke. That's it.
Fair enough. His odds are looking quite good. He's polled for 92% right now. So, yeah, we'll see how that turns out tomorrow. One person that I wanted to ask you about that switched sides a couple times but has very strong opinions on the Israel-Palestine conflicts is Candace Owens. I'm interested, in your view, what would be her biggest strength and her biggest blind spot as a public figure?
I think her biggest blind spot is that thinking her confidence equals accuracy. Her biggest strength is her lips, because when she's not moving them, they're sort of hot. And her speaking is impressive, almost as impressive as she just never shuts the fuck up. So I think she's good at debate, in all honesty, just bad at volume control.
Now, your rise in social media, like we mentioned before, didn't start with your evaluation of the Israel-Palestine conflict. It started with Alpha King Nima, your sort of set of rules for the Red Pill community. Do you have any new rules, or are those completely gone?
You know, after October 7, I think I was dealing with a lot of cancel culture. And I don't know if Alpha King Nima got 200, 300, 400, 500 million views. I actually don't know. It was about a year and a half I did it. And it was during last year's election year that I felt like my accounts were getting flagged. And I had a comedy show here in New York that was canceled. And I think they saw some of the material. And one of the waiters or waitresses was a transvestite, a tranny. And the owner of the club was scared of getting a lawsuit because apparently there was a comedian who did a tranny joke. It offended the staff member. And that staff member filed a lawsuit for like 100 million or something like that. I don't know the number. I don't want to say that. So they canceled me. And I think it was around that point that I was just like so jaded. If I do any sorts of jokes at this point, it's just as a businessman. I'm not an actor. I'm not a comedian. I'm not a political analyst. I'm not a political commentator. I'm just a business person that likes to make content like this. I'm a small business owner here in the United States. I'm a businessman. I'm interested in these social and political issues. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm an American citizen. I love this country. I want to see this country prosper. And maybe one day I'll run for some sort of political office. I don't know yet what's the best way for me to serve, but I do think I can play a part in helping this country.
Well, I don't think many people know about your entrepreneurial life. And I was interested, if you had to sort of tattoo a rule of entrepreneurship on young men's minds, what would that rule be?
I think the number, I founded one of the largest crypto trading communities in 2021. And we're, I think, the largest Chinese trading community on Discord. I've never seen one bigger, at least, with Pablo Heeman. He's a former investment banker, institutional trader in Hong Kong. And what has helped us make millions of dollars in our community since 2021 from our members, we provide a service, educational training, is I try to give 10x what I charge. So if we charge, let's say $100 a month for our monthly membership, I try to give, in my mind, 10,000 even, 100x, the quality of information, or at the bare minimum, 10x. And I think that has helped us renew a lot of members who have just stayed with us for years. We have members that have stayed with us for years. It's easy to get a member to join your community once, for example, or your health, your country club. But to have them renew, you have to earn that every month. So I would say if there was a rule, it's exceed the expectations of your client or customer. Always give more. Now, on the flip side, I'm not an easy client. I'm not an easy customer because I am demanding, because that's my standard. My standard is I give excellence. So when I don't get it, I tend to get insulted. I'll give you another example. If someone approaches me and they just want to take value from me, they're far less likely to achieve their goal than if someone comes to me and they add value. If someone comes to me and they add value, that stands out and stands apart right away. I'll give you an example. Let's say 10 people come and they ask me for something to help them. I want to help them. But one guy says, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for you without me asking. That says to me right away, that guy understands to take, but also to give. And it's about giving and taking. I think like I take, but I give. And I'm generally a giver. I generally give more than I feel I take. But I'm going to take. I am going to take.
Now, you weren't always the multi-million viewed, multi-millionaire crypto leader. You started at a gas station in LA. Tell us about that time. What did that phase of your life teach you about money, privilege, and perhaps even the opportunity that you carry today?
way before I made millions of dollars, it's true. I did actually work at a gas station. I worked at 76 gas station in Los Angeles and Pacific Palisades on Sunset and PCH. And my friend was laughing at me because I'm a Middle Eastern guy working at a gas station after I dropped out of college. And I was only making a few dollars an hour. This is around 2001. And how much Malibu's changed now. I mean, it's the whole place burned down. A whole part of it burned down. And when I worked there, it was hard for me, man. I didn't make much money and I didn't know what I was going to do next. What helped me was sales. I went to a convention with one of my best friends, Nigerian kid. Now he's a man, successful businessman. And we went to a conference and I found a job opening to sell newspapers. And at that point, I thought Michael Dell used to sell newspapers and he was successful at it. And there was this Armenian guy, Kirk Kappelhoff, who was this billionaire who owned MGM. And he also, and neither of these guys finished college, but they were incredible salesmen of newspapers. So I thought to myself, that's my test to see, can I do it or not? And I got the job. I started doing sales. And right away, I broke a sales record for Los Angeles Times. And I remember I was at a Denny's in like Gardenia, California. And the manager was like, Nima, we give you this award. You broke a sales record. And people clap. Not a lot of people, like 5 people. It's not like the whole restaurant was clapping for me and a beautiful girl with a bikini gave me a kiss. No, but it was 4 or 5 people, And that was the first situation in my whole life that I felt like I got recognized for something good, because I used to get in a lot of trouble in school. And that gave me a lot of confidence, man. That was 2001. That was 24 years. And that one thing was something that truly gave me so much confidence.
Just that moment of people clapping for you and recognizing your success?
Yeah, and that I actually did one thing significantly good. Because in school, my parents, my brother, my dad have a high IQ. My IQ is 91. I don't actually have a high IQ. I mean, I'm close to low IQ, technically. I went to a community college with a D grade point average. I went to NYU briefly to have a community program. It's not like I got in. Sales was the only thing that I was actually, sales and then, sales and stuff that's creative. That stuff I can do. But outside of that, my wife, she's a college graduate. My parents are college graduates. My brother's a college graduate. I come from a pretty, I would say, my family's pretty, academic, man, actually, in that regard, at least somewhat. I didn't feel like I fit in, in that way, with the Iranian community or the Jewish community. I mean, I'm not like those, I didn't do good. I was like the dumb one. But in stuff like creative stuff, I managed to stand out. In sales.
You remind me of this Einstein quote. He says, everyone's a genius, but if you make a fish try to climb a tree, of course it's going to feel stupid. And I think everyone has their avenues. I'm imagining that there is a lot of people watching that are incredibly impressed. You've built this empire, and off of what you would say is close to a low IQ. What advice would you have to the people that feel like they're in the same boat as you 20 years ago?
It's interesting. When I was younger, I would look at older businessmen who were committed to giving public service and giving back. And I thought maybe that would be me one day. I'm very fortunate in the fact that I was able to achieve success in business. And I was also able to piggyback off some of the success of my father, who I miss a lot. And he was generous with me. And one of his dreams, for example, was, to see a free Iran. So I'm at a point in my life, before I answer this question, to tell you is that I think now I want to truly help other people. I'm very comfortable. I don't have the needs many people have. And I want to help people, you know? That gives me more happiness than just going out and making money. Now, I'm still a businessman. I still make money, but that stuff doesn't motivate me as much as the intrinsic stuff of trying to make the world a better place. And now that I say that, I say to anyone that's listening, I'm not trying to sell you what I'm about to say. Like, this is just sincere advice. I've already made my money. I've already gotten married. Anything I make now is bonus. I'm already married with the woman I'm going to spend maybe the rest of my life with. I already have my child. Maybe I get another one. I'm good. You know, like you can't take, like I'm already locked out. I already got my best friends for decades. Like you can't steal my best friends from me. You can't steal my wife, my daughter from me, you know? Mm. So, you know, all that said, if I was 20 years younger, what would I do right now? I think one thing I would do right now is I would test a bunch of things to see what I'm good at. Because if I didn't know what I was good at, I would test a bunch of things to see what do I learn the fastest? What am I best at? What comes the most natural? And then after I find that, what do I enjoy the most? So what do I enjoy the most? And then is that aligned with what I do best? Is that aligned with what I learn the fastest? And is that aligned with what I just like, I get recognition for? And if that's the end, then the last thing, is it economical? Can I make money doing it? That's the fastest way for you to make a lot of money. Now, that said, everyone doesn't need to get rich. You know, everyone doesn't need to have, make millions of dollars. Like, there's people that work as, they do important jobs like the police officers and they contribute to society. Their work to society is just as important as any capitalist or business person. I don't think a wealthy person is any better than a doctor who saves patients from heart disease. There's a doctor right here in New York right now who's maybe doing heart surgery on someone's father. There's another doctor right now in New York that's probably doing surgery on a daughter of a man who has diabetes. And he may be saving her life. There's a firefighter right now who may get cancer in a few years because of his occupational hazard. Firefighters have higher rates of cancer. Many people don't know that. Plumbers have a higher rate of getting cancer. Many people don't know that. So these plumbers, how dare any American look down on a plumber or a firefighter? I don't look down on plumbers or firefighters, especially considering knowing that they have an occupational hazard of getting cancer at a higher rate than any of us. And they don't even get much money. At least the firefighters get respect, which they deserve, right? So I would say find a way to contribute to society. Think less about, I'm just going to get rich, because even if you do make a lot of money, it's fine. However, how are you going to contribute to your community? I think that attitude of how can I contribute to my community on a local level, neighborly level, how can I contribute maybe to my state, to my country, to the world? I think like this. I think, how can I contribute? And when you start thinking like that, people come to you. I think public service is very important. I think truly one of the greatest sources of happiness in my life is when I serve others, when I serve something bigger than myself. Truly, it is. It has been far more rewarding than I thought.
I had the Scottish Korean Ryan Williams on the podcast.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's amazing.
He's amazing.
A very courageous guy. And one thing that he said something similar to what you're saying, which is, I asked him what men are missing. And he said, men have lost something that they're willing to die for. And that reminds me of the Nietzsche quote, if a man hasn't found something for which he's willing to die, he's not fit to live. And I'm wondering if life gets too easy to a point where the threat of death doesn't even seem realistic, and therefore the consequences of it, or of tyranny, or of bad policy, or whatever, kind of goes to the background. It reminds me of that.
It's interesting you say Nietzsche, German philosopher. He had a book, Zoroaster. That was an ancient Aryan religion in Iran. When I think about what would I die for, I'm willing to die for my freedom. I refuse to have a world where I live on my knees. I think freedom is worth fighting for. I truly do. I think freedom is worth fighting for. As something that I'm willing to die fighting for. I cannot just, they want you scared, man. You know, they want you scared. They want to arrest the people. They want to kill the people. So you're scared and you shut up. That's what they want. But if enough of us speak up, they can't do that to all of us. And that's why it's important that everyone that sees this sort of content shares it. Not just this content, but just content like this. Because what they don't want is to have 1,000 of us all speaking up. When that happens, there's then another 1,000, another 1,000, another 1,000. And that's it. I'm just thankful I'm in the United States. It's a shame I can't go back to Iran. It's a shame that I don't feel comfortable going to China anymore. I do business with Chinese people for over 4 years. I don't feel comfortable going back there. And I wouldn't feel comfortable going to Qatar. You know, I wouldn't feel comfortable going to Afghanistan. There's some countries I don't feel comfortable going to. Why would I? I'm not welcome there. Clearly, right? So, yeah. I hope one day we can all go to Russia, because I feel Russia is our natural ally. I think very highly of the Russian people. My lawyer, my main lawyer, general counsel, is Russian American, and I don't know why Putin does all that propaganda towards us, nasty propaganda, when they are much more of a natural ally to Europe than they are to the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party uses Russia like a little brother, and they still have their geopolitical issues in the Central Asia, which is a whole podcast just on that alone. At least with Europe, they're an equal partner. I hope Trump works out something where Russia comes under our tent, because I think the Russians would be a great partner for us. I don't want to give up on Russia. I don't know what it is. I think that they should be with us. They should not be with the Chinese Communist Party and Iran. Why?
Do you have some inner conflict with that, given what's happening in Ukraine?
Yeah, I have a lot. Yeah, actually, I know it's not popular with many of my friends. It's not popular with a lot of my friends, what I'm about to say, but I support Ukraine. Yeah, I support Ukraine. I don't want to see Ukrainian people get raped. When I saw a video of a Ukrainian girl getting beat by a Russian guy or whatever, it bothered me. I don't want the Russian people. I don't want the Russian people to rape the Ukrainian. I know it's in vogue to just say anything Russian is correct. No, I don't think that's right, man. I think it's wrong what's happening to these Ukrainian people. Yeah. And not only that, my home in Germany, we're right next door to Ukraine. What's next? Poland? What's next? Lithuania? What's next? Sweden? But if you're going to just think America first, I get it. We're here in America. We're so far away from Russia. I get it. Perhaps I'm biased because I have a home in Germany. My wife is German. I am sensitive to what's going on, but most Americans are not like me. So I understand. I also empathize with my friends who think maybe, I'm an idiot. I understand. I get it. If you're in Georgia, if you're in North Carolina, South Carolina, you don't give a fuck what's going on in Europe. I understand that. I completely get it. I do care. I do care because I don't want the Russians to come in and invade Europe. I think it's wrong. And I think that they're literally, Ukraine is our ally. The Baltic states are our ally. The Scandinavian countries are our allies. What's next? We're going to let them take over all of that? We're going to let them take over Poland? Then what's next? Germany? Right? So it's scary, but I say all that to say, I wish I could speak to the Russian people. Honestly, I wish I could speak, and just say, why don't you join us, man? Let's make a super team. Join Europe. Join America. Join Israel. Don't let those Chinese commies take control over you like that. Stop your Soviet propaganda. And they do a lot of nasty Soviet propaganda on Jews. They build a lot of nasty hatred for Jews. I say this, despite what I know what they do. I'm not naive to what the Soviet propaganda is doing, by the way. I'm very aware of it. very exceptionally aware of it. I just wish they would do a ceasefire, join Europe, stop the fighting with Ukraine, and then stop pandering to these Chinese commies. The Chinese commies are by far the number one threat we're dealing with.
Why do you say that?
They have the largest naval fleet in the world. They're building ships faster than anywhere in the world. They have openly, hostilely said that at some point they're going to go in and take Taiwan. Taiwan's our ally. Now, yeah, we have these tariffs and stuff like that, and Trump's saying that, okay, some of these companies from Taiwan are going to come here to the United States, help our chips, semiconductor. And that's fantastic. However, I still think Taiwan's an important ally, just like Japan is an important ally, Australia is an important ally. And again, I understand that we have Americans that don't give a fuck what's going on in the Asia-Pacific theater. I do, because I think that I'm not an isolationist. I do think this stuff is going to come here because we're not isolationist. You can be an isolationist in Crawford, Texas, okay, in Columbus, Ohio, or wherever, okay? You're isolationist. Good job. We're not going to leave the world alone. China's not going to do that. They're not doing that. They have special forces in Canada, perhaps, Mexico. They're doing drills. They're pushing fentanyl into our country. We have Americans dying. They're pushing drugs. They're helping Maduro in Venezuela. They're not doing that. They're not, man. They're buying farmland near our military installations here in the United States. They're a serious threat, and they outnumber us by 4x. So no, I don't think the Jews in Israel, Moshe having a lox bagel is our enemy. No, I don't. And even the terrorist financiers like Qatar, I don't think they're going to do much. They're going to get blown out. Qatar and China, Qatar and Iran is scared right now. Everyone knows it. Anyone who understands what's going on in the Middle East knows it because they're scared that Israel's about to do. When Israel goes in and knocks on that door once more, the next one's the finisher for that regime. Qatar thought they could finance, violence towards Israeli girls who got raped, the beheadings of the children. And then when Israel, reached out and touched someone, figuratively speaking, when they did those attacks in Qatar, despite the military bases of Americans there, that was a clear message. Hey, pal, we can find you. Now, do I think that was helpful and how loud they did it? No. I think there should have been I don't think they should have done it that way. That was too high profile. But that said, the message got clear and the hostages got sent in. The hostages were freed. I asked the hostage person, by the way. I was at an event and I heard a hostage member on October 7th. I asked him, looked him in his face, and I asked him. He wanted to be an actor. Good kid, your age. I asked him, I said, he was hostage for 500 days. I asked him, I said, in your 500 days when you were held hostage, did anyone in the tunnels, did anyone in Hamas ever offer you like a friendship? For example, like in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, maybe out of 15 Hamas members, one of them was like, you know what, this is wrong. So I asked him this question. That was why I asked him that question. And did any of them offer you friendship in the 500 days? And he said, no. That's what we're dealing with, man. And when you see Palestinian children screaming songs to kill the Jew and kill the American, and then we got Americans defending these people, this is what they're teaching their children, bro. There's footage. You can look at footage of Palestinian children saying death to the Jew, basically death to American. And then we have American kids here defending these people. You can't make this up, man. There was an Italian. I think he was Italian. He was pro-Palestinian. He went over to Palestine. They cut his head off. I think they literally beheaded him. Someone could fact check me, look this up.
No, I heard the same story. Yeah. I definitely think there's some cognitive dissonance there. One of the most telling things for me about the conflict was that there's not a single Jew in Palestine, but there's a lot of Palestinians in Israel. One, it seemed to be the case that they were allowed into the country. The other one, if you were to walk around, you'd be wiped off the map pretty quickly there. Is there something that you wish more Americans knew about the conflict that they don't know?
Definitely. I think what many Americans don't know is that the IDF has perhaps over 1 billion people who do respect it. I think the IDF doesn't get the recognition it does in the United States about how much respect, prestige it has to its reputation. It's an elite brand, a prestigious brand, a brave one that conducts warfare at the highest moral standard ever in human civilization, in human history. No military has ever been held to that standard that the IDF is. Brave men and women with complete valor, excellent standards. They move towards excellence. They're incredibly brave. I mean, they're incredibly outnumbered. And yet they don't fight as nearly as dirty as the Palestinian Hamas. Now, someone could look at this and say, oh, did you know this one person? Yeah, there's always one bad person does not take away from the overall. So if we're talking about the overall military, I think if you were to give it a score, arguably the highest score in human civilization, I don't think any military, if we're honest, has been held to the standard of the IDF. And that's why I think that it has the most prestigious brand equity, elite brand equity, valor. There's a reason why Zionist is so popular to over perhaps a billion Hindus in India and around the world. When people see that there's a small tribe of Jews that are completely outnumbered and they're winning. Yeah, I think people, special forces around the world admire the special forces of Israel. I think intelligence agencies around the world admire the Israeli intelligence agency. And I think that the military intelligence system in general, Israel is respected for their excellence. So I think there's a lot of prestige. It's an elite brand, and it's known for its valor and bravery. And if you look at the amount of borders, language, and culture which comprise a nation, I think Israel has inspired many movements within Europe, like Hungary, like Tommy Robinson in England, like Le Pen in France, like Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. It has inspired many to take back their country. Europe is a European continent for Europeans. They should not have to be scared of migrants coming in there, raping their daughters, and welcoming mobs of migrants to come take their benefits and insult their people. I don't think any migrant, I didn't go to Germany for the Taliban culture.
How do you distinguish between a government and its people? Meaning, let's just say Hamas versus the Palestinians. How do you distinguish, and how important is it to distinguish?
We have a big problem because there are a lot of Palestinians who do support Hamas. That is true. And hopefully in that area that's going to get controlled by the people on the outside, they help improve the education for the children. One thing the UAE did was they built schools which do not indoctrinate their children to hate Israel. And I respect the UAE for doing that. The UAE is a good example of that. Hopefully, and I think that that's going in the right direction. I think a lot of it also starts with school. If in Israel, the 8-year-old Jewish kid is learning to have respect for the Arab, but then the Palestinian kid who's 8 years old is singing a song, deaf to the Jews and deaf to America, I mean, what are we doing here? And this is documented. Why should we even help the Palestinians if they're singing songs? They're telling their children to sing songs of deaf to America. Why should we help them at all at this point? No, they should have some respect. Why should Israel help them when they are so hostile? And there's a reason why most Arab countries don't want to help the Palestinians that much other than talk, because they know what they're dealing with. That's a dark secret of the Middle East. Now, here we are in the United States. They speak up for it because Qatar has a big budget. So Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, they're not critical on Qatari spending as much as they are Israel spending. Why? Clearly, I mean, that's the red pill. That's the red pill. Why are they not critical on Qatar? That is it.
Do you have a theory?
That I think is not that's a question. If you're America first, why are you not holding these people accountable? Why is Massey, MTG not getting held accountable for calling out Qatar? Call out Israel. I'm all for it. I'm American. At the end of the day, I'm American. Let's hold Israel accountable, but let's also hold Qatar accountable. Otherwise, you're not America first. You're pandering to Qatar. To me, you're pandering to Qatar if you're ignoring Qatar, because you're doing basically Qatar's talking point. Thomas Massey, I did a tweet. What a degenerate Massey is. I did a tweet to Massey saying, why don't you you're holding Israel accountable. Why don't you hold these other countries accountable? He had blocked me. Despite it got like 160,000 views and other people shared it, he blocked me. He didn't answer the question.
Isn't it illegal for a congressperson to block a U.S. citizen?
Yeah, it's a blurry line. It's a blurry line. It's a blurry line between what constitutes illegal and what doesn't. I looked into it, and bottom line, he got away with it. But now there seems to be good pushback on having government. Especially, this is a big problem in England too. I was just talking to someone earlier prior to getting here. They're talking about how in England, I saw something that they said about England, how they can just do something like Mayor Khan or like a home secretary or something in England. They can just do something and they block it, but yet they get the government designation. It's like, if you're going to take the government designation, then let's keep it public, right?
Sure. One phrase that you post almost daily on your social media, and your followers will know this: if you woke up today, you winning.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
If you woke up this morning, you're winning. I heard it once. I heard it a lot from the song that 2 Chainz did. And it helped me understand, hey man, we just woke up this morning, you know? No matter what you think, how bad your life is, at least you woke up this morning. You know, appreciate that. Have thankfulness that you woke up this morning, man. Have thankfulness that you woke up this morning, because there's some people who didn't.
There's a blurry line I find between being grateful and wanting more out of your life. You always want to achieve more, but you have to be grateful with what you've got in order to have any sort of contentment. What would you say to men out there that are trying to find that line within the gray, who want to be more content with their life, but still want to go out there and achieve more with it?
Give me an example.
So I've got an entry-level job at some corporate firm, and I'm happy with my life, and they're working me to death, and I know that I could grind really hard and climb that ladder, but I'm also content. What path do I take? Do I take the more content path where I, chill on the hours, spend more time with my family and friends? Or do I climb that ladder and maybe sacrifice some of the deeper friendships that I would have had in order to achieve that sort of pinnacled success that men so desperately desire?
It's crazy. It's like, despite the fact that I'm a business person, I like to do, in the next year, build business, do some angel investing. So I do like business. I'm biased, I still think every man should do civic service. I think every man should focus on his family. However, I'm also biased in the sense of I work long hours. I also work long hours. And perhaps, my father worked to the last day of his life. He literally worked on the last day of his life. He had a heart attack and died.
Wow.
73. And he was 9 days before he died, he was in the gym. He was one of the oldest men in the gym. And, I probably will work until then. I don't ever see myself retiring. I love work. I love my family and friends. However, I don't want to stay home all day with my family. I like going to work. You can find a balance. You truly can. When I hear young guys talk about they're busy and they tell me they're busy, and I'm just like, look, man, I know you think you're busy. I'm busy too. But tell me you're busy after you have a wife and you're a dad. You know? Bro, like it's a whole, like, I don't think a man truly can understand what busy is until you have a busy career and you have a wife and you're a father. It's just, I'm sorry, man. I am sorry. I've been busy as a bachelor and I've been busy as a father and husband. It is not the same.
So what do you tell that bachelor when it comes to the guy who says he's busy? What's the best advice for him?
Definitely try to enjoy the ride. It's going to go fast. Enjoy the ride. Take it a day at a time. And don't get so preoccupied with your career that you miss your parents getting older, because your parents are getting older. Your grandparents are getting older. And you're not always going to be there, man, to hug them. And you have a limited window of hugs and kisses. And just to hear your father's voice, your mother's voice. You know, I think Will Smith said something along the lines of, you don't become, I can't find it. I've been trying to go crazy to try to find it. I can't find it after my father passed away. But Will Smith said something along the lines of, you become a man when your father is gone. You don't become a man until your dad's gone. And I think that's true.
Well, if any of you can find that, put that in the comments.
Yeah.
So Nima can go check that out.
Yeah.
You brought up family a lot. It's clearly very important to you. I want to revisit something that you mentioned before. You said you and your wife aren't aligned necessarily on politics. And you kind of mentioned that it's a topic that you just kind of avoid. That's contrasted to what you might hear like Ben Shapiro say, where he says the most important thing in a relationship is that you are aligned on values. So how do you navigate this? And I'm speaking specifically to New York guys, because there's a very classic meme movement of guys pretending to be liberal to date liberal girls, even though they themselves are a bit more right-leaning. How do you navigate that?
I mean, I don't just have a liberal wife. My wife is German liberal. You know?
What does that mean?
That's even more liberal, you know? So it's like, because Germany is pretty liberal, you know? My wife is born and raised in Germany. She came to the United States first because of me. You know, when she came, that was literally because of me. And she came to Miami. That was her first, trip to the United States was Miami. Mm-hmm. And we'd like to do road trips and stuff like that. Look at America. I've taken her to Alabama and stuff like that. I've taken her to North Carolina, brought her here to New York, Atlanta. But my wife and I politically are not aligned. Like my wife and my mom are politically aligned. And I think we just have a mutual respect for each other, where we occasionally get into it, but not much. We generally avoid it. But they know, they probably view me as like a far right extremist, So like,
do you,
and I'm not. Yeah.
Right, but I understand the perspective from where they would see that coming from. Do they get annoyed or kind of have some sort of anxiety around you being so public with your views?
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, one more thing is that I do have some leftist views too. Like in Germany, we have universal healthcare, and it works out great. Now, I wish we had that in the United States. We just have so much corruption. I don't know if that could work, and that's not necessarily an American. I do have a pretty environmental. Like there are some things I would probably be viewed as a leftist. For example, on making college affordable, healthcare, environment. So like there are things about me that are leftist. So I just think that some liberals, they just view anyone who's in the center as like a far right. I'm pretty center, man. I'm an independent. I'm not Democrat or Republican. I'm center. I'm pretty center, actually. But to them, maybe I'm like a far right extremist, And I have a lot of problems with the Republican Party, man. I'm not a Republican, for the record. Am I right-leaning, center? Yeah, I would say I am generally right-leaning. You know, am I more popular with conservatives? Yeah, no doubt about it. Do I think Trump's doing a fantastic job overall? Yeah. I don't think he's perfect, but I think he's doing a fantastic job. I like the fact that he put Kash Patel in there. I like the fact that he put Dan Bongino in there. I think Marco Rubio is like a superstar right now in that administration. I think Steve Witkoff's doing fantastic. Yeah, man. I mean, I could keep going, but when I just think about some of those people that Trump's brought in, man, fantastic. I hope Marco Rubio runs for president, man, because I think he'd be great. You know, that's personal.
Him or JD Vance?
I like Rubio, man. But JD Vance, I think I don't like, from what I understand, he's a pretty hard Christian. And to have a Christian president like that, like if I understand correctly, like Qatar and these countries, they may not like someone like that. That sort of makes me like, to be honest. Like I don't want a president that our enemies like. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I hear you.
You know?
No, I hear you. So let's go a little bit deeper down to like the micro level opposed to the macro. At the end of the day, this channel started based on masculinity. And a lot of people feel today that masculinity is being attacked. Some others say it's being redefined, and some others still that it's being rediscovered. Where do you think masculinity lies today? Attacked, redefined, rediscovered? Where does it sit?
I think it's important that every guy learns how to fight. I do think that you don't have to be a professional fighter, but I do think some basic self-defense classes. I do think every man in America should learn how to use a firearm. At the very least, so you can protect your family from an intruder. In Florida, you're allowed to carry a firearm. You're allowed to have a firearm in your home. And I think that's important. Aside from that, having the financial capability to work and make money. And aside from that, reading books, educating yourself so you can, help your family learn, guide. The father has a unique job. My wife, our daughter loves my wife. And she's like a little mama's girl, However, the other day, when my daughter was in trouble, she called for me. So there's something you can say about, and I feel bad, I didn't go over there when I should have, and she fell. And that still bothers me even several days later. It's on my conscience, because I wish it was me that fell, not my daughter. I wish I would have fell 100 on 100 occasions nonstop and have her fall once. Fortunately, she was okay. She fell from the sofa. However, it's I think that statistics have demonstrated that a girl that doesn't have a father, how much more likely they are, I guess, to not finish school, go to jail, go out like a whore, like you don't want that stuff for your daughter, So I'm pretty affectionate with my daughter, man. I'm pretty attentive, pretty affectionate when I'm not working. My daughter knows she's valuable to her father. My daughter knows that her father adores her. My daughter knows that. My daughter knows that I go to the gym. My daughter knows that I exercise. Like my daughter knows that I work. I try to have I don't drink in front of my daughter. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I generally get healthy food for our home, organic, a lot of organic. And, we have family that give my daughter desserts. In the last 6 months, I can think of maybe no more than 2-3 situations where I sit down with my daughter and have a dessert. I don't like to do that, and when we do have desserts, it's like no sugar, for example, but like I try to model good behavior in front of my daughter. So for me to get my daughter like a dessert with sugar, for example, that's not something I generally do. And I try to hug my wife in front of her.
You clearly take the role of being a father quite seriously.
Yeah.
Was that modeled for you, or is it something that you learned for yourself?
Yeah, it was modeled for me. My father was amazing. I miss him so much. It's been about 4 months now since I've lost my father, and it was just such a gift in my life, man. And I miss him. You know, it's very hard. It's very hard when I think about him. And I know that he would want me to do my best as a father because he loved my daughter. And my daughter gave him a lot of happiness in the last 2.5 years of his life. So that's, yeah, man.
I hear you. One of the things that I've always said is Chris Williamson posted this quote the other day, and it was from a book he was reading, which he's a notorious reader, like you said. And it said the amount of self-confidence that you need to have in order to achieve success is borderline delusional. You need to be so confident in yourself in order to achieve your goals that it's borderline delusional. And sometimes I feel like that self-confidence was infused in me by my parents that were so utterly in my corner that no matter what I did, they were there. And I think that's what you're saying about your dad, that he was that for you.
Yeah. My father was very creative too. You know, like I think that was one thing I took from my father. And he had a good work ethic. So he was a good model for me in that way. So.
Now you spent time between, it was Atlanta you were born, LA, New York. True or false? West Coast, best coast?
False.
Expand.
Yeah. Huh?
Expand on that.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
I love the East Coast. I was just talking to, I think, my wife about it. I was just like, I just love the East Coast. I love visiting California, but I love the East Coast, man. I spent about a year and a half. I spent about a year in Malibu, about a year and a half in LA, a little more than a year and a half in LA, completely Hollywood, West Hollywood. I was briefly in the Valley, but nah, I'm all in. I'm all in on the East Coast, man.
And now you're a Miami man.
Yeah.
And this last New Year's, I believe you hosted a party with 50 Cent. Is that right?
Two New Year's back.
2 years back?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
That was fun, man. Shout out to my boy, Barry Molyneux. He was the organizer. And yeah, we got in. It was nice. It was basically a big night, man. 50 Cent's a nice guy too, man. He's a nice guy, yeah. Maybe we do it on this New Year's. We'll see.
I was gonna ask, is there anything coming this New Year's?
Not yet. But this just reminded me to get on it. Actually, yeah. It's next month.
You can repay me with the ticket.
Yeah. Maybe you got it, man. You got it.
So as we wrap this up, Nima, what's one thing you wish the men of America knew, the women of America knew, and the general populace knew as a whole, or perhaps they could go and learn more about?
I wish more Americans understood the threat the Chinese Communist Party plays to America. They're not necessarily our ally. They're not necessarily an enemy that's coming tomorrow, but they're going to come soon eventually. And they are encircling us. And to have a better understanding of how they're weaponizing the United Nations, which should get defunded from us in America. We should defund it. It's basically the communist nation. The way they have Pakistan come in there and talk down to, let's say, India. The way they have these Arab countries come in there and talk down to Israel or talk down to the United States. I mean, they have weaponized it. They get these poor countries in Latin America and Africa on financial dependency. They go in there with their infrastructure, road programs, and so forth, and then they get them to do the dirty work. And I think it's disgusting. I think it's repulsive. And I don't think we should, and I think that there should be more of a recognition that the Chinese Communist Party is actually our threat. Chinese Communist Party should be talked about way more. Qatar should be talked about way more than Israel. And the fact that it's not tells me it's a psyop.
It's funny, you're the second person to tell me that this week. So definitely do your homework on that.
Yeah.
Last question. New York. Where's the best place to eat?
There's a place on Rivington, a Dominican restaurant next to Hotel Rivington. I've been going there for years. And La Castilla, it's banger, man. It's the pride of, I can't come back to New York after spending about 15 years here and not go there. It's a diner, it's a Dominican diner. And crazy thing is that the lady called me El Arabo, like I'm an Arab. I don't think she understood to distinguish between Middle Eastern. She's such a sweet lady. She reminded me of my grandma, a younger version. So I just go, I hug her, hugged her before.
And what was that place called again?
La Castillo.
La Castillo.
Yeah,
okay, we'll take a look. The castle.
Yeah. Next to Hotel Rivington, Lower East Side.
Okay.
It's one of the few places I feel that's still there. Because now there's so much gentrification in the Lower East Side, but back like years back, that was there. And it's still there.
Incredible.
It's a local spot.
Well, Nima, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
You are a man of principle, and I really appreciate you sharing everything you shared today.
Thank you, bro.
Have a good one,
Thank
man.
you for having me, man.